Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast. We have made it through round number 12 of season 2026. It was a week where the Saints continued to sink. Carlton recorded an enormous victory over Geelong to potentially jumpstart their surprise wildcard campaign, while the Giants have steadied the ship after their humiliating loss to West Coast with another win on the bounce. Speaking of those Eagles, well, aren't they doing well against one of the worst AFL sides I think I've ever seen in my entire adult life? There's not been much of that, but my name is Jesse Dart, joined as always by Liam. You can find both of us at CMPerfect_AFL on YouTube, at Instagram, and of course for our main podcast on Apple, Amazon, and Spotify. Liam, I thought I'd get the housekeeping out of the way straight away. Just because it's a bye week doesn't mean we're going to take our foot off the gas. How did you enjoy round number 12?
Coming out hot, Jesse, tonight. Hot. You must have stuff to talk about. It's fantastic. Yeah, look, I mean, it was a great little football weekend. We've obviously had some really wild, wet, woolly weather over here in Perth this weekend. So it's been, it's been conducive to sitting on the couch and watching a few games, which has been very, very nice. Some very surprising results. Some great results for us Freo fans as well. But across the board, Jesse, it was a very interesting round of footy that we'll talk about, I am sure, in due course. Now, normally we have a bit of a deep dive every week. Now, I'm coming in a little bit blind today. You've prepared something, but I'm not entirely sure the scope or extent. And let's be real, that's every week, really. I come in here, you give me a topic, I join in, but it's just basically you having a say, Jesse, having a say. And today's no different. What are we talking about today?
I wanted to originally talk about the rapid degradation of broadcasting standards for the AFL. Okay. But thinking about it more broadly, has there been a worse time to be an AFL fan?
Well, I'm feeling okay about it, but there must be something in particular, Jesse, that you've got your mind set on. What are you talking about?
Well, let's start with the broadcasting thing first. Okay. Because, and I don't know if I've just noticed it this week or whether it has legitimately just changed since last week and this is the new way of doing it now. But so I watch the Fox feeds, right? I watch the KO feeds. Sure. So I don't watch the 7 feeds. So this isn't directed at JB, BT, Kane Corns, whoever. This is my experience watching the Fox feeds this round. I have noticed an epidemic of commentators calling players by their first name. Now, in most instances, when we rant and rave about bad list management, bad drafting, bad trades, I'm unqualified. I'm a footy fan. However, when we talk about commentary, I get an opinion on this because I have commentated at waffle level. So one tier off the AFL.
And look at the headset you're currently recording on, Jesse. I've tried to get you to get an actual microphone. You're like, no, I feel comfortable in these cans. They're fantastic. It's got a little microphone out the front, like you're calling a game. So you're a bona fide pro at this point, Jesse.
I wouldn't go that far. But what I will say is I do know commentary craft. And one of the first things that's instilled to you as a commentator is they're not your mates, they're not your friends. Call it professionally. I don't consider Harley to be professional when Harley Reid is on the ball. Okay. I don't consider Nick for Nick Dacos. Like, again, they're not your mates. I know you love Nick Dacos. We know that every commentator is duty-bound to adore Nick Dacos. No one is disputing that. I understand there's 2 Dacoses, and that can be a little bit confusing sometimes. I know it's hard when there's more than one of the largely similar thing. But that's when you say Nick Dacos. Or even, and this is true, Josh Dacos.
I thought you were going to say Nakos or Jacos.
No, that would I don't know where that sits on better or worse. See, I can use Washcroft when I message my girlfriend because my girlfriend has Washcroft in her fantasy team, and that's fine. But look, I'm looking at it. We know that there's now games being called remotely, so not going to the games. I mean, if you watch the Melbourne GWS game on Sunday, Keziah Pickett's incredible goal got nothing. That's a bad fan experience, I think, at home. I'm looking at it, and you can clearly see you have something to say on this.
I was going to say something similar to that because you're talking about when you say they got nothing, you're talking about the call, right? Yeah. It was kind of like, wow, look at that. That was about it, right? Did you see the comparison between the Channel 7 feed and the Fox feed for Cripps Mark at the end of the Geelong Blues game?
I haven't seen that, no. Describe it for me.
Night and day. Channel 7 was just like, Cripps, and he's done it. Like, basically that, right? Foxtel, or Fox, KO, whoever, like, I think it was what's our mate, Your mate and
It's
mine.
Friday, isn't it? So Waitley gets the call, doesn't he? Was it?
Yeah.
Was it old Waitley?
I think it was Waitley. No, it could have been Matt oh God, is Matt Smith. Matt Smith?
Matt Hill, but he wasn't calling
Matt Hill.
Friday. Oh, actually, no, he might have been calling Friday.
I've noticed he's starting to do a few. Whoever it was, fuck, it doesn't matter. Whoever it was like right into it. He's like, Crips, like getting right into it. He's done it again, the champion, like night and day. Like night and day. When I saw the Channel 7 one, I was like, damn, that's really underwhelming. Also, just getting the names right in general. I'm not sure who Jai Amos is, but I heard Amos several times. I'm not too sure who said that, but obviously a very huge.
It was Mark Howard, who has been calling for 2 decades. I know it's very in vogue to bash Kelly Underwood's commentary. To be clear, I actually think she's a great host and a wonderful presenter.
Mm.
But you do have to call out a lack of commentary craft. And it's things like that. And what did she have? She had Sydney Richmond, which, look, this isn't her fault. That game was awful. That's really not on Kelly Underwood. But yeah. I do think, and look, and it's not about calling out individual commentators too much. Like, it's a pretty hard gig, right? Like, it is, especially when they're being put on a screen. Like, that is rough. Like, I wouldn't want to be calling off a screen for so many reasons. But that does significantly deteriorate your ability to narrate, which is ultimately what a commentator is. It's a narrator. Your job as a caller is to provide that extra element of drama, context, emotion into a game.
Sure.
We occasionally get drama. We sometimes get emotion. There's a couple of guys that are really good at that. Context, I notice very rarely. It's one thing I've actually noticed watching more of the marathons lately. Now, obviously, when you watch a marathon, there's way more time to kill than there is in the AFL game, right? There is way more time to kill. But you can tell straight away who is a well-researched marathon caller and who isn't by how much context and information they're providing about the athletes. Like, even 10 years ago, you would get BT. I can't remember who it was. But he was going absolutely off his nut about someone living in a garage. It was an Essendon player, I'm pretty sure. And he was going off his tree. He's like, he lives in a garage. I think he was in room with one. I'm so sorry, I can't remember who it was. But it's just stuff like we don't have even like the silly ridiculousness like that anymore.
Mm.
It's one element of, you just miss out on contextual things. And when you talk about a fan experience, well, you want to be drawing in new audiences, right? Are you drawing in new people just by giving them nothing? Like, yeah, okay, you can make the argument the game is great in and of itself. But I look at some of our current presentation on television deals specifically, and I can't help but feel like we're not utilising our game very well at all. Mm. Your thoughts, Liam?
I reckon it's just a case of there's too many cooks in the kitchen, mate. Because, you look at between your two TV broadcasts, because there's always a 7, there's always a Fox. Then you've got about, 3, 4, 5, potentially more radio stations covering the game. I don't know. I'm not going to solve this, Jesse. I'm not going to solve this, but I reckon there's too many cooks in the kitchen.
I get what you're saying. Although when I was calling Waffle, there was 5 stations that were covering it, not including 7's broadcast.
Mm.
So not all stations would cover all games, but sometimes you would have, like when you were calling it Freo Oval, for example, if that was a marquee game at Freo Oval in the diagonal media box, it was a real, like you obviously have your allocated spots, but it's a real fight, especially when there's a TV broadcaster there. So, you can opt to have multiple different outlets covering something. I don't think necessarily excuses calling people by their first names. Like, I don't know if I'm just really hung up on this and if I'm just taking this way too seriously, but I first heard it on Thursday night with Watson being called Nick and Wiz, and that annoyed me.
Nick?
Yeah.
it's like 15 Nicks.
And it's like, I hear it, I think, like, are we over-casualising the game and stripping back some of that professionalism around it? I don't know. That's my first thought.
Yeah, I reckon that might be a very, very potentially niche one to you, Jesse, because you're such a master for the craft.
Well, I consume the product at the very least 6 times a week, right?
True.
So yeah. I'm seeing more than the average footy fan. So to someone who's watching on a Thursday or Friday and a Saturday, they probably don't care, and that's fine. But I feel like most of our audience are relatively rusted on footy fans. If they found us and they've stuck around, they probably enjoy the more minute details of the game. And we probably should try to talk a bit more strategy and tactics on this podcast going forward as well. But certainly in terms of that fan experience, I feel like it's degraded this year compared to even previous seasons. Not to say that necessarily the calls have gotten worse, but the way games are called has gotten worse, in my opinion.
So that's one thing. What else has got you hung up on the fan experience at the moment, Jesse?
I don't like the way game day is for a fan anymore.
Okay.
There's a song every 5 seconds. There's 11 million activations during quarter time and 3/4 time. I don't know. We go to the Dockers games together.
Yep.
Obviously, we are in touch fairly regularly because we host this podcast. But
Sure.
if we wanted to sit down in our seats at quarter time and 3/4 time and chat about our lives, hey Liam, how's work going? What's going on with your family?
Mm-hmm.
Could we actually do that?
Well, no, because I got to watch the guy chase the Macca's logo around the corner.
Exactly. I know West Coast have the Mexican wave at 3/4 time.
Okay,
That's quite bad.
interesting. I mean, this has always been a part of sport, though, Jesse. I mean, I remember back in.
It's been a part of American sport.
Well, I don't know, because I mean, back when I was graduating high school, like early 2000s, I went to the Wildcats quite a lot, the Perth Wildcats, and every quarter time, half time, 3/4 time, there was some sort of game going on. I remember I got pulled up for one of those games at halftime, got to chase the mascot around. He was covered in $5 bills. It was fantastic.
Hey Liam,
Yes.
where was basketball popularized?
No, America. But like, and what I'm saying is,
So why are you still trying to push ahead with this point?
well, because it's part of sports, mate. I mean,
It's part of.
sports.
It's part of.
Well, okay. When did it start, Jesse? When did it start in Australian sports?
Post-COVID. Notably post-COVID.
Oh, I reckon it's been around a lot longer than that.
To the level it is now, with songs in between every goal.
Well, no, that's just, well, no. The songs between the goals are a relatively new one. I'll give you that. Because they needed something to do during COVID.
No, they don't. It makes it an entertainment product. It's making it a sport.
Well, you can see why they brought it in during COVID, though, right? No crowd there. You got to do something to lift the spirits, lift everything up. I don't necessarily hate the song between the goals. I don't necessarily hate that. I think it gets everyone involved, especially if it's country road. Just to take a contrarian opinion to yourself, my friend. Like, I think I don't tend to notice that from a fan experience perspective as being a negative personally. I think it's quite good to get. I see your point about the 3/4 time, quarter time, but it's very easy to ignore that as well, Jesse. I mean, like literally everyone does. Like no one. Maybe the Oz kick. You might watch the Oz kick and watch the kids try and take a screamer. That's always a bit of fun. But for the quarter time and half time before the game, it is noise. I take your point there. It's a lot of noise sometimes. But I mean, that's just part of the experience. I'm trying to think of a time where this could be just. I don't remember a time, Jesse, where there wasn't that at the games. But you obviously you've gone to the local games and you're a big fan of the waffle and all that kind of stuff. Where they probably don't have as much of that razzle dazzle. Is that where your comparison's coming in?
Not even necessarily. I think back to going to Dockers games as a kid. So let's say 2007 to 2010. For comparison's sake. So obviously, rose-coloured glasses, Halcyon days. We could even go back to the death of Ross Lyons era, which there's no rose-coloured glasses there, let me assure you. It's a completely different experience. Back then, and you would notice, you went to Subi when it was around.
Sure did.
You go to the game. If you're going with people that you meet up with them, you might have a drink or do whatever you do, whatever your pre-game ritual is. Go into your seat, watch the game. Quarter time, go up, do whatever you want. Half time, go up, do what you want. But you're there for the football. And everyone's still there for the football now. But you can't tell me it's just not constant saturation of everything. Everything is just oversaturated now.
I do wonder if that's just part and parcel with the times. You've got everyone's deep in their phones all the time. Like everyone's trying to get away from their phones as a means of escape, right? Because you always have to be, stimulated with something. And I reckon that's definitely come in. And I'll go back to your point about the American stuff. I get your point about the American thing, but I do think that it's been part of this society for a long time as well. I don't know. I don't necessarily see the downside to it, Jesse. I'm not too sure if most fans would see the downside to it, but I'm intrigued to see if anyone does. So if you do agree with Jesse, obviously let us know in the comments down below because I'm keen to hear your thoughts as well. Anything else that's bugging you, Jesse?
How long do you have? How long do we have?
I'll give you 4 more minutes, Jesse. Go.
Okay. It'd be great if we could get some consistency with how rules are applied. That is
not going to happen. Next.
Oh.
I mean, it's just not, is it?
No, it's not. Players getting abused on social media for things like having a multi-loss.
Yeah.
Or a super coach loss. I mean, that's really quite tragic.
I mean, that's one area of the game that I do think has ruined the fan experience, and that's gambling. Obviously, we don't mind a cheeky punt, you and I. We'll put put a little bet on, but we don't go crazy with it. Never to the point where we're abusing players for losing.
I cannot fathom having my hard earned on anything, and then when that anything doesn't come to fruition.
Yeah.
Like, imagine standing at a roulette table. Mm-hmm. And screaming at number 13.
Yeah, I've seen that. I used to be a croupier. I've seen it a lot. And I feel like saying to those people, you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here. Number one rule with gambling, everybody, if you're going to gamble with something, you got to be prepared to lose it and happy to lose it, because that's probably where it's going. So I'm not too sure if it's a fan experience, Jesse, that's being ruined by gambling, or if it's a player experience having to deal with the rubbish that they have to deal with from people on socials.
Well, I think it adds a layer of toxicity around the sport.
Yeah, sure.
And there's always that element. And we've seen people get very excited when they've had a win, and people conversely get very disappointed when they've had a loss.
I would have sworn that kid had just won like $7,000 the way he was going on.
When we say kid, reasonably assume it was an adult. It's not like a 5-year-old.
He was drinking, so I'm assuming he's. But to me, I mean, you're a kid, Jesse. You're a kid to me as well. He would have been like early 20s maybe, but he was very, 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 very pumped for his $95 win, which is fun. Like if you can do that with gambling, you have a bit of fun with it, fantastic. But I'm sure he wasn't going to go and start, I can't speak for him, but abusing Shea on social media for not kicking a goal. You know what I mean? Like there's levels to it. But I do think there's added an element that's a bit, it's been around for ages, but I think now the accessibility piece again is definitely making it a bit more toxic as the years go on. What else, Jesse? Go on, you got 2 minutes left.
I reckon that will do me for now. Because I don't want to take away from my earlier points. So very interested to hear what people have to say, if anything, on this topic. Do you agree that the fan experience is degrading? Do you disagree? I think it's been better than ever. I'm very interested to hear. I personally feel, even though my team is on fire, I've never felt less connected to the football club.
Interesting. Well, that sounds like a different thing altogether, Jesse.
Well, I think that's just more so. My experience as a fan, it feels so transactional now. And look, that's always been the case to an extent. But I certainly notice the transactional elements of supporting a team more, say, now than I did 5 years ago, pre-COVID. As a child, I mean, obviously that's different. But,
sure.
I can only speak to my, let's say, adult experience. So let's say, last 5 or so years, give or take. I certainly feel as I've progressed on, it's become more of a transactional relationship. And it's great that we're winning this year, but if you start to get around to it, so why am I sinking hundreds of dollars in this football club and they suck?
Well, ask an Essendon fan, see what they say, because I mean it's probably you're the pinnacle of that example right now. If you're supporting that club, and people support their clubs through the good and the bad, but
100%, that's not up for question. But I do feel as though, I think we talked about this last year, or maybe at the very start of this year. Do you still feel connected in the same way to the club as you did in the past? You said kind of, I was kind of on the going in other directions. I still feel like that's the case. And,
yeah. No, I was going to say, Jesse, like, I think my association or my relationship with sport is an escape, right? It's not my personality. It's not my being. Like, I love the Dockers, I do. But like, once I get to work during the week, we talk about footy a little bit during the week with some of the lads at work. And then that's it. Like, I'm not like frothing about it, which is interesting because obviously we do this every week. I enjoy talking about it with you, but I think that's kind of where I give it all my footy to this, and then it's just like, So it's just a nice little escape for me more than anything else. Like I'm not that invested, if that makes sense. I'm invested, but I'm not that invested. Hopefully that's
maybe the podcast is ruining it for me.
Maybe
Subscribe if you want us to end this podcast immediately. Hey, Liam, we've got 7 games to talk about, so we better move on. Happily, there's only 7 games, so we can give each one a little bit more airtime.
I think, Jesse, what we're going to do next week is just the deep dive is just like, all right, Jesse, grievances, go. This is your therapy session, your footy therapy session, and dear listener, it can be your footy therapy session as well. Why not?
Is that time limited?
Well, I mean, it depends. Just it depends. If we get to like 40 minutes, we haven't got to the game recaps, then
Chapters
probably.
1 through 17. Fremantle's recruitment policy from 2016 through to 2020.
Yeah, put it as an audiobook. Chapter 1.
Oh, I could do an audiobook on that. The end of the Ross era.
Chapter 1.
Now you have to like if you want that one. We can't confuse the metrics. You have to like if you want the audiobook and subscribe if you never want to hear me again. And that is, kind of important. We have the metrics. So send those through. Liam, Thursday Night Football, we're going to get started with that in the Marvel Purgatory. And oh boy, there's been a sale at JJ's, but there's been no big boy pants going down to Moorabbin. What's happened there?
Oh my goodness, Jesse. 9-13-67 to the St Kilda Saints, going down to the Hawks 18-11-119. Took them a good old half and a bit to score a goal. Did it do the Saints? What was it, 55-5 at halftime? Not a good game. Jesse, this is you're on this duty. I didn't get to watch much of this game. So what are your thoughts on it?
I promise we've been more analytical. We try to be more analytical in our conversations moving forward.
Yes,
I loved the way Hawthorn set up behind the ball here. They made it impossible just about all night, especially that first half, and the scoreboard reads for itself when you talk about that. But the way Hawthorn set up behind the ball, so guys like Battle, Sicily was a big part of this as well, and then Impey as well. So these three guys behind the ball, very, very well structured, very well organised, and that plays to Hawthorn's strengths because as soon as you get a solid wall set up that doesn't allow St Kilda to break through, you've got your runners like your Watsons, your Ginivans, McDonald can go. They've got plenty of foot speed. Mackenzie's another really good example of that as well. They've got so much foot speed that just allows them to keep moving. Plus, you've got the single best lead up forward in the competition in your team as well. It just gives you so many options. And St Kilda aren't exactly a run and gun team in the traditional sense. They run a lot, but they're not really known as that offensive, rolling the dice, tsunami-style offense under Ross Lyon. They're a bit more conservative, but they do rely on hard running. So as soon as you're running up into that wall constantly and time again, it's just like when you take your dog to the dog park and you throw the ball for them. Like they're just running around in the same fenced area. They're going to get tired eventually. And while what was happening in the inverse here with Hawthorn dominating at the start and then allowing St Kilda to kind of get through, I think that was more to Ross realising, you know what, this really isn't working, rather than tiring out. I don't think Hawthorn were gassed by any means. I think just simply put, that level of pressure wasn't sustainable when Ross changed things around because the setup was so well done by Mitchell for Ross's normal tactics that it was never going to work out for Ross. And it surprised me it took that long. But a great result for Hawthorn in that regard. And tactically speaking, I still think Mitchell's probably the best in the competition for that. Or certainly if he's not, he's very close to it. We've seen Exhibit A of that on Thursday night.
Callum Wilkie, one of the better defenders in the competition. Would you agree, Jesse?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's roll back a few weeks when we obviously went to the game, Saints and Freo, and we saw Gunston just running roughshod on Luke Ryan. Would it be fair to say that Gunston was doing the exact same thing to Wilkie at the start of this game? Because it looked like that to me, just leaving him behind, leaving him in his dust.
Yeah, it's not a good matchup for Gunston. I think we've seen firsthand, as we know, what happens when you put Gunston matched up with an unsuitable defender. He will absolutely torch them beyond belief. That's just what happened here. Now, obviously, is Cal Wilkie one of the best three defenders in the competition? I believe so, certainly in that key defender category. But he's not the right matchup for Gunston. And the problem is, though, is who do you match up on him? Because his role is now so old school, yet with such a modern twist. Yeah. It makes it very hard to defend. So you have to pretty much prepare someone during the whole week. I would never put my best defender on Gunston. Okay. I put my fastest guy above 190 on him. I would not put my best defender on it. Even if they are the same person, I actually wouldn't do it. Because for someone like Wilkie, he is best in the air and seeing what's around him and intercepting. I think Silvani would have been a better option. It's not a great option. And Silvani had to go forward in the end to try and kick some goals, which really said how things were going. But that's what I would have done personally. But I think Gunston is such a trap card that Hawthorn play. And it's been interesting to see who's been assigned that matchup in recent weeks. And I think more coaches are getting it wrong than they are right.
Yeah. It's funny because like you were saying, it's like an old school mentality with a more contemporary twist. Because, I mean, Gunston was taking Wilkie right back to the goal line like a true full forward and leading out to it. And I'm not too sure if it's the case of that full forward kind of mentality died for a few years. But I'm noticing like with Tori Amos, Jai Amos, he was when he gets in a lead, you can't stop him, right? that seemed to go out of the game for a bit. It seems to very slowly be coming back in. Is that a fair assumption, Jesse? Because that's kind of what I've been
Yes, it is. Everything got extremely zonal in the late mid-2000s. Pretty much Paul Roos ruined football.
Okay.
You can
Thanks,
say.
Paul.
That's not true. He actually is a very good coach. But in terms of his defensive revolution really did alter the way football was played for a very long time. Now, the reason we're seeing more forwards get back to that lead-up style, in my opinion, is the 6-6-6 rule and the stand rule. It is not allowing teams to flood back defensively to nearly the same degree, and it gives forwards more space to work into because there's just not that same level of congestion.
Mm. Yeah. And it does promote a faster game. I know, obviously, it's hard to see sometimes, but like...
the game is absolutely faster than it's ever been. You can absolutely eye test that. Yeah. That's not even up for debate.
I mean, even watching, we'll get to Free in a second, but even watching their games, like when they stop for 2 seconds, it's kind of done. Like you've got to go. If you don't go, you're kind of cooked. Okay, we've spoken about Gunston, we've spoken about Wilkie. Anyone else we want to rattle off in this one here, Jesse?
Yeah, we need to talk about the Saints because they're 5-7, same as they were last year. The pressure's on Ross. I don't necessarily agree with that assessment.
About what the pressure being on?
That Ross maybe isn't the guy. Look, is he the guy in general? Like maybe not. Maybe he isn't. But despite the misgivings about a premiership list, despite the big chest, big boy, big chest, we're the big dogs in the big dog yard now. Woof woof. Like the list isn't that good, guys. Like we're seeing Cooper Sharman in 2026. When Dan Butler's fit, we're going to see Dan Butler in 2026. We have seen consistent Liam Stocker in 2026. Sadly, given he looked quite promising at Fremantle, we're seeing Liam Henry in 2026. These guys aren't premiership players. Like, they're not going to be premiership guys. So I think if you want to look at someone's head to roll, Silvani's the obvious one. Stephen, that is, not
Sauce,
Jack.
Yeah.
But also the club hierarchy. Now, does Ross end up getting swept out in that tide? Maybe. But if St Kilda don't make a wildcard spot this year, which when you look at Carlton's resurgence, the Giants' potential resurgence, potentially Port, not out of the question, also North, now all of a sudden, rising tide, that's a real risk. Mm-hmm. Have you seen North's next month after Fremantle?
No.
Custard. They should win all four.
Okay.
This becomes a major issue now. I'm gonna pull up the ladder. I should have had this open earlier. I apologise. So you've currently got St Kilda in 12th.
Yep.
They have a game in hand on North, who are 13th. So they'll have right of reply against the Dockers once all the buys shake out. Carlton are same amount of games, one game behind them. Port are one game less, 2 games behind. Now, I'm a bit iffy on Port, but we can bring them into this conversation. North have a great run. Admittedly, St Kilda have a pretty good run home too, but they're not beating good sides. So if you keep, and all of a sudden the teams are going past you, and you're not beating sides that are better than you, and they're now better than you, that becomes a problem. So, the Giants have now gotten themselves back into a wild card spot, which I did not see coming 2 weeks ago. So fair play to the Giants. We'll talk about that later. Melbourne, they've lost 2, but they've still got 2 wins on the Saints. The Dogs were teetering on the precipice with their injury crisis. They've now won two in a row. St Kilda have lost their last 2 and won 1 of their last 4. So their form table has them going very much backwards. They've got to play Sydney this week. I think winnable, but absolutely difficult. Like it's a winnable game, but it's on the harder end of a winnable game. Honestly, the team I would say is probably in most danger of crumbling that's not the Giants above them is maybe Gold Coast. And that still doesn't fix the problem that St Kilda are currently 12th. That puts them into 11th, which is not good enough for a wildcard. If this was still a top 8, we would be talking about this far more than we are.
Yeah, because it'd be done, right? We'd be putting the line through them already.
There'll still only be a win out of it, so maybe not just yet. But you would be saying, hey, this is meant to be a trademark premiership list trademark. How could the Academy do this? And they're 12th.
Didn't they pick up someone from the Academy, Gold Coast Academy, in the mid-season draft as well?
They did. And everyone laughed. And by everyone, I mean me. How could the Academies do this? Let's move on. Quick word on Hawthorn. They're back. I know they faltered a bit. They had those 2 losses in a row. Gritty win against the Crows. Powerful win against the Saints. Should get the job done against the Doggies, I think. But an interesting test for where both teams are at.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting tests next week. It's going to be a very interesting episode of Tips and Trades coming up on YouTube tomorrow.
I hope your graphic is education themed and has a whiteboard.
Well, look, it would have been.
If it's testing round.
Well, no, but it's the big freeze also. So it has to be big freeze round, doesn't it, Jesse? That's the theme. That's the theme. All right, let's move on to the next game, Jesse. This is a big one. MCG on Friday night, the Carlton Blues 12-16-88. Getting over the Geelong Cats 12-12-84. Hello?
Now, look, I had messages about this straight away. Let me get one thing out of the way very quickly.
Sure.
Geelong will be fine.
Oh, yeah, obviously. They'll be fine.
Let's just put that straight to one side.
Do you know what? In that Tips and Trades episode last week, I made a joke when I put basically all my confidence points on the Geelong Cats that the Fraser hadn't lost a game yet, undefeated. And could Chris Scott say the same? No, he couldn't. I made a joke, and then I put all my confidence points on Geelong, and then look what happened. Oh, the vibes were there, Jesse. I just didn't realize it at the time. Look, this is credit where credit's due. Carlton played their heart out in this game.
They did.
Absolutely played their heart out. Like, Geelong looked kind of stunned. Like, I don't even think it was a case that Geelong played bad. I think it was the case that the Carlton Blues just took it and ran. And I'm not too sure if this is a case of, like, because obviously you can't now use the SAC coach, new coach, great, because obviously Essendon exists. But there's something about the freedom that Fraser's given the Carlton Blues across these last 3 weeks that is undeniable. Their leaders, like Cripps, has had a resurgence in the last 3 weeks since Vossi left. Like, is it a case, Jesse, of it's like, okay, so Carlton have had three good wins because they've had the kind of the shackles taken off. There's no system. There's nothing. Well, there's probably a system, but a very basic one. Does it speak to the fact that maybe Voss was trying to do a bit too much for these boys and they were getting lost in their minds? Yeah,
it does. And you know, you can't deny the evidence of the eye for too long. And that's kind of where we are with this. Now, Carlton sit, we talked about wildcards before. Carlton currently sit 2 games outside the wildcard spot, having won their last 3. And guess what, Liam? They get a freebie this week. So they're going to win they're going to win 4 in a row. And before anyone says anything, they're going to win 4 in a row. So that gives them potentially a game off, because I don't know if Giants have a bye anyway. So I don't know if all of St Kilda, Collingwood, Brisbane and Adelaide are going to win, because there's some tough games in there for those sides. So it's now likely that they will sit a game outside of a wildcard spot at the halfway point of the season.
Yeah, which isn't a bad place to be. That's
pretty well salvaged from where they were.
Yeah, considering where we thought they were going to go. No, it's fantastic. You'd be very happy with that as a Blues supporter, for sure. But what do you reckon, Jesse, from the game itself, noting the fact that the Blues were playing fantastic footy, what was it? Was there anything particular that stood out from the Blues that just put a pin in the Cats' hopes and aspirations for this game?
I think Blake Acres coming back in the team really changed things for them. Acres is a dare play. He doesn't get it right all the time. In fact, he gets it wrong a lot. Look before you kick, Blake. However, you can't deny what Blake Acres brings to a team, which is dare, willingness to drive things forward and move. And they've started to get more of that. So guys like Sam Walsh are starting to look to use the ball by foot more than by hand. Jagger Smith is a player that will take territory where he can. Cripps has always been a bit of a crash and basher as well, but you get guys now that are willing to just push the game forward, and it brings these other guys into the game. Like, you have now a younger forward line who are hungry and they want the ball in their hand because they want the chance to go and contribute. So I think the stale, miserly grind of Carlton that we've had over the last 18 months feels like it's out the door. Now, that's obviously still very much a long way to go for the Blues to be contending again. Very, very long way to go for that. But what you're starting to see now is these guys who are maybe starting to say, where does their future lie? Are they anywhere close to where they were at their peak? Well, they're starting to start to trend back in that direction, which then all of a sudden changes you from a team that's 17th with 1 win or 16th with 1 win to 14th with 4 and 2 games off the finals. It's been a big shift, and it's an exciting shift for Blues fans.
Absolutely. What about the Geelong Cats, Jesse? What did you say? What was the issues with them this game?
Decision making was weirdly poor from the Cats, I felt.
It was. It was very. It was
and
very
that ultimately, I think, was the game.
Yeah, but this is the thing though. The Geelong and every team's kind of owed a blip from time to time, but yeah, they just seem to be rattled, like completely rattled. Like they didn't know. They prepared for one team. It's like two prime fighters going in. One of them, they prepared for one guy, and then all of a sudden, they've just realised they've had this wicked training regime they knew nothing about. The scouts got that wrong, and they've come out and been absolutely smashed.
They prepared for David. It was actually Floyd Mayweather.
Correct. Correct. It was
Ow, stop hitting me, Floyd. That hurts.
But it was weird, though, because the Geelong Cats are usually so good at just adjusting. And, you know, we talk about Chris Scott being the coach of the years because he's fantastic. He's been there for donkeys now. Success out the wazoo. They couldn't in this game.
Well, they almost did. I mean, Dempsey did kick a goal that was not allowed, even though it was blatantly a goal and the margin was less than a goal. So that's a concern.
But that was at the start of the game. Like you can't blame the whole thing on that thing at the start of the game.
You can very simply draw a conclusion between a difference in scoreline.
Oh, I mean, the quality's there, right? Carlton were going at a 10, and the Cats maybe a 5, and it was only a 4-point difference. Like, you got to take that in consideration as well. Like, but at the end of the day, like, credit where credit's due. The Carlton Blues just absolutely suffocated the Cats in this one and got the win, which is very, very exciting. I think we're all shocked. All shocked indeed. Anything else to add for this one, Jesse?
I think let's move on.
Okay, we'll move on to this absolutely massicre.
Yeah.
And we can't skip. We've got to at least read the scores. Okay. Sydney 25-20, 170. It's quite a nice score to say, actually. Defeating the Tigers 8-8-56. Yeah, 114 points. That's never going to be a fun day for anybody. Heaney was great. Kerno kicked 8, so you got to put him in the best. Loves beating up on the shit teams, doesn't he?
This entire football club will never beat the downhill ski relegations. This is the definition of maximum gradient for the Swans. This is an absolute freebie.
Yep, one was good. I mean, realistically, Jesse, it's just one of those games where there actually is nothing to say. It was just a case of the Swans playing the Tigers, who are obviously in a very, very strong rebuild. The Swans have only lost twice this season. Inevitable, right?
Yeah, the margin will disappoint the Tigers, but this was only going one way.
Yeah, in a big way. All right. No analysis, Jesse. Should we just skip on?
I think let's bank some time for the next game.
You got it. Oh, wrong way. There we go. It's 3 weeks in a row that I've got the wrong way. That's fine. Shut up, Jesse. At the Gabba, the Lions 10-18-78 going down to the Dockers 15-13, 103. What a game of footy this was to watch, Jesse. It was nice to see Freo, back it up. As Freo supporters, every week we're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. How do I feel about the game against North next week? I don't know. I don't know. But it's getting harder to deny the footy they're playing this year and how good it is, especially when you beat. I mean, admittedly, a very, very underperforming Lions outfit. But at the end of the day, you got to get it done, and to beat the double reigning premiers the way they did was a nice sight to see. I've got the 3 forwards up there as the best, Jesse. I know you can put others in there as well, because obviously there was a lot of great players for the Dockers. But 4 to Voss, 4 to Miss, 3 to Tracy, like epic up forward. You go now. You can say something.
So many things I can say. Let's start with Brisbane. We can press the alarm button.
Ooh, okay.
We're not going panic button because they're still in the wildcard spots. Now, if they completely detonate against the Suns and slip out of the wildcard spots, we can press the panic button. But let's press the alarm button for now and just take stock that this is probably the worst we've seen the Lions since the start of 2024, when they were very bad. Now, obviously, they won the premiership that year, so that turned out fine. But I think, realistically, I know we have a few Brisbane supporters who tune in to this show on a weekly basis. I think realistically we can say this is the worst they've played in 3 years. Now, does this mean this is over for them? No. But you have to be concerned. Their short chip mark game that has been so effective for the last couple of years is being heavily policed by the umpires. And without Zorko, Kitty Coleman went down early. They've had disruption to their backline all season. I think that's where the root of the problems have been for the Lions. And I think we're really starting to see that come to roost at the moment. So
It's actually not a bad point. It's not a bad point. Just quickly on that thing about the chip mark game. I've never seen so many not 15 play-ons called.
They were hot on it in that first quarter.
So I wonder if it was the thing during the week. The umpires were like, watch them. They do very small little kickies. And now they're not winning, this is a huge and important part of umpiring. If the team's not winning, be stricter. That's the rules. That's the goal.
Well, if you think about it from a tactical point of view, so why are you doing a shorter chip mark game tactically? Do you know, Lim?
I guess just to kind of get over a zone or get past some strong defensive like structures potentially.
Yeah, correct. So what you're trying to do with the chip mark game is you're trying to draw defenders up higher up the ground with a view to then play over that line and then get it to a quick break. It's worked for the Lions so well over the last really 5 or 6 years, if you take into account the fact they've been contending since 2019. That now, when you have that set up in place, you're relying in many ways on that 10 seconds for the mark to be stood, for you to go back and make the next kick. When you don't have that, all of a sudden every kick is now under pressure. So you're drawing defenders higher up the ground, and you have to make decisions faster. And that's where mistakes are happening. And I think we saw a lot of that early with Brisbane, is that they weren't used to that level of pressure being on them in that forward half because they've always been so good at playing out of it by way of having that spare option on a 45 laterally, someone somewhere available to receive a kick relatively uncontested. That wasn't there for them on Saturday, and that really disrupted the way they like to play their football.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. What about the Dockers, Jesse? What do we see? I was a bit concerned, I won't lie, in that last quarter, because I thought we might have had a bit of a case of the Geelong game from round 1, where we just spent all our tickets early on and then couldn't finish the game. Because the Lions started coming back pretty late in the game, granted, but there was a little bit of doubt. I was sitting there enjoying my red wine, and I was watching the game. It was very lovely. And then I was just like, well, okay, wait a second. My feet went from being up on the table relaxed to on the floor, leaning forward at the TV going, stop it, Freo. Start playing some footy. What are you doing? They look very tired, but they held on, which is the key. But Jesse, what are your thoughts?
Well, we're 12 weeks into the season. I've yet to see a 3-quarter performance from this football club.
That is a concern.
I have not seen all. Did I say 3 or 4?
You said 3. We've seen plenty of 3-quarter performances, never a 4.
We've not seen a 4.
We've not seen a 4, no.
And that was what I meant to say. We have not seen a 4-quarter performance yet from this side. We've seen performances where they've not really had issues, like the Derby. I would put in that list. That's probably it, because Melbourne had a really good quarter against Fremantle. Even Richmond were competitive through the first half against Fremantle. Essendon as well, but that's a bit of a freebie. So, okay, so let's go with the Derby kind of and Essendon have been the most complete performances, and that is 15th and last. Yeah,
but I mean, the Essendon one was a complete performance, or is it, they didn't look like they were trying, Jesse, in the Essendon game.
You can only beat Sydney. You can only beat what's in front of you.
True.
So I think that is still a concern. But when you're 3, I think this is what I was trying to say. I made 2 points at the same time. But when your 3 quarters is so good and very difficult to go up against, which is what Fremantle have been this season, you can paper over those cracks. I don't think Fremantle would love a grand final against a Sydney or a Brisbane or an Adelaide. They would loathe one against a Geelong.
Yeah. No, fair. I mean, I don't know if there's any team this year who's been a 4-quarter team, though, to be fair. Like, it's been a very, very interesting season for that. I don't think there's anyone who's really standing out as being a complete team. I know they keep saying the Dockers are a complete team, but I don't think they are. But no, I mean, yeah, is what it is. Is what it is. I mean, it's a big win. It's a big win.
It's a huge win. Defensively, Fremantle have been awesome. 856 points against from 12 games. That is, that's up there with some of the best defense we've seen at the club. And interestingly, it's not necessarily been a complete blanket from the main guys, but it's been significant improvement from Warner and Chapman that have really contributed to this overall improvement. I think, Pearce has been steady. Cox has had a bit of a production bump this season in terms of his defensive quality. But yeah, Warner and Chapman have been real improvers this season. And I think that's, if you wanted to point to a reason as to why the Dockers are a lot better now than they were 12 months ago, 24 months ago, it's guys like those two that have made a big difference defensively.
100%. All right, Jesse, shall we move on to the next game?
Let's.
All right. At the Marvel Stadium, 14-13-97. The Bulldogs just getting over the Magpies, 13-15-93. And it was a bit of a close tussle, which is what we expected from this game based on where these two teams are at the moment. Jesse, what were your thoughts on this one?
Here's a thought exercise for you, Liam.
Oh, I love those.
So the Dogs have won by less than 10 points combined in the last two matches.
Mm-hmm.
So let's reverse those two results.
Mm-hmm.
Say Melbourne get the job done and Collingwood get the job done. That both happens.
Okay.
The Dogs are now in 13th.
Yes.
With an inferior percentage to North and St Kilda and on a run of what? That'd be at least only one win in their last five. And probably one win about the last seven.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you extrapolate it out.
Sure.
That's an extremely different scenario. So Luke Beveridge and this team have saved their season in the last fortnight, and absolutely full credit to them. It has been last fingernails, or I guess dog claws, holding on for dear life,
mm-hmm.
and not only salvaging where they're at, but also very much keeping themselves in the conversation for a top six spot. Because just quietly, Liam, I'm not overly enamored with the two teams directly above them, who are actually equal with them on wins this season.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think I put the Dogs in fifth at the start of the season, fifth or sixth in that area. You know, or despite the very windy road to get here, that's still very much a possibility.
Yeah, considering the hard luck they've had with injuries across the last month or two, like it's fantastic to see what they've been able to get out of the last 2 weeks for sure. Because yeah, close wins, but it's a team that's always had hard, right? Despite what's going on, they had a bit of a blip when all the injuries started, but they've worked it out. They've worked it out. How long has Beveridge been at the Bulldogs now? I feel like it must be close to a decade. But at this point,
over
a decade.
He won the premiership in 16.
Oh,
I reckon he
time
took over in 14. I reckon.
That's insane. My goodness me.
He hadn't been at the Dogs for that long when they won.
No, but it goes to show what he can pull out of this crew and what kind of coach he is. Because yeah, this is a massive win for them. And the Magpies are a funny team this season. Like again, you write them off at your peril, but you know, are they it this season? Definitely not. But around that kind of middle part of the table, this is a gettable one for them as well. They'd be disappointed the Magpies. But what are your thoughts on this one, Jesse?
I feel like 12 months ago they would have won this, and that's just maybe where they're at. But if you look at these numbers, 5 wins, 6 losses, a draw, pretty equal across the board. Points for 994, points against 195. So
points against how many?
995.
Oh, so basically 100%.
So they are fundamentally the middle of the road. They are not better than average. They are fractionally worse than a perfect average. But for the purpose of rounding and statistical anomalies, they are bang average. Straight down the middle. And, you know, this year, bang average might be enough to get into a wild card spot. But it also might not be, because you're never going to have an exact tide. You'll have a high tide some years, you'll have low tides other years. Last year was an extremely high tide to get into the top 8. You know, this year, right now, we've got 7 teams within 6 points of each other. Now, obviously, there's still a bit more to play out this season, but it's not looking like a high tide. You know, 4th spot is 8-4. That's not a particularly high tide season in my books. So, you mean when you look down the bottom, you've got a team on 1 win, a team on 2 wins, a team on 3 wins, 2 teams on 4 wins. So they're actually performing better than recent seasons. And I think we did this the other week, didn't we? We went through the win-loss records of the Spooners and the real sucky teams in the last 10 years. So when you've had 1 win West Coast, 2 win North, 2 win West Coast, you know, I think Richmond will probably eke out another one somewhere. Essendon will have a chance. I don't know how they beat Melbourne, but they did.
Sure.
Port will rise. I think West Coast we'll talk about soon. Carlton will rise. They'll win more than their 4 currently. So I think you're going to have a fairly low tide this year, which might suit Collingwood, but at the same time, they might get swamped.
Yeah, 100%. Bonapelli, fantastic again. Ed Richards keeps doing his thing. Tim English, good to see him back and doing his best in his footy as well. Like back from injury, which is nice. And the main offenders there for the Collingwood Magpies as well.
The usual suspects.
The usual suspects, Dacos, Tagoe, and Pendlebury. Sorry, Nick Dacos. Should clarify that. I don't want to get it wrong. Should have just called him Nick. All right, let's move on, Jesse, to the next one. We got Sunday football. All right, 2 games on Sunday. The Demons, 9-16-70 going down to the Giants, 19-5, 119. Crikey Moses, the third quarters have been the Giants' saving grace the last couple of weeks, have they not, Jesse? Absolutely flooring them.
Yeah, they've really reversed their fortunes after that dismal loss to the Eagles at Optus Stadium a couple of weeks ago. This is much better from the Giants. They look good offensively. Having Sam Taylor back there helps out enormously, just for that confidence piece, for what it brings into the defensive group. And I think Lockie Ash being able to get back into that back six has helped out everyone. He's not a midfielder. I know he's forced to play there, but it's just like the Giants have gotten a couple of pieces back and has really reversed their fortunes, which is really positive. I was very concerned about Adam Kingsley's future after that West Coast loss. I was starting to think he wasn't the guy for this playing group. I'm not turned around on that yet. I still don't think the Giants are a serious contender this year, but you can't argue with what's in front of you, which is the fact they've beaten 2 teams that are above them on the ladder in recent weeks. That deserves some credit. And I think the ability to score 19 goals 5 is a very positive sign for the second half of the season.
The Demons were flying, and they've now had a couple of losses in a row. What's happened? What's happened the last couple of weeks? It seems there's been a bit of a confidence shake after the loss last week.
I think they're a confidence team.
Yeah.
To be honest. And I think it's going to take them getting a team kind of on the downward spiral. I mean, look, they were pretty unlucky against the Dogs. Close game, it happens. But this was the disappointing one for me. This was the one where, okay, that's a pretty bad result. They need to stop selling home games. They never win their home away from home games. Remember when Fremantle got a hold of them in Alice a couple of years ago?
I was going to say, this is the one where Free absolutely demolished them there, wasn't it? Yeah.
Not a happy hunting ground for them, but still playing well. Wish you would kick it more for my fantasy team, but that's beside the point. Gorman was good. Over on the other side, Callahan, Green, Thomas, you've nominated. I would agree with that. Whitfield had a very good last quarter as well when the game was well and truly over. Liam,
yes.
I think we've saved the most interesting tool last year.
Do you think so, Jesse?
I do.
All right,
maybe the second. Carl was pretty interesting.
Carlton was pretty interesting. That is true. Optus Stadium, the Eagles 12-13-85, defeating the Bombers 8-7-55. And it's probably a scoreline that actually flatters the Bombers a little bit, to be honest with you. In what was some very, very windy conditions in WA last night. I'm actually quite surprised they went on with the game because it was almost at the point where... Oh, the rest of us are told to batten down the hatches, Jesse. But you can still go to the footy, which is great. Because it allowed us to watch it while we were battening down the hatches in our houses. Very nice. No, I mean, this was just... wasn't a great game of football to watch, Jesse. It wasn't a great game of football by any stretch of the imagination to watch, but it is good to see that the Eagles very comfortably handled the Bombers in the end. And again, like the D's, the Eagles are a confidence team as well, and this is going to go a long way into their very winnable match against Port Adelaide next week. But what are your thoughts on this one?
One-sided, comfortable, as comfortable as I've seen the Eagles since 2021. Gee, it's been a long time since they've completely controlled a game in front of the home crowd. And sure, it was a depleted home crowd, given the apocalypse going on around them.
Good on though. Good on for getting out there.
Yeah, I know people that turned up and were very excited when it was. The game was far from exciting. As a neutral, I have to say, that is some of the worst football I've ever seen. But West Coast, you can only beat what's in front of you. Just ask Sydney. They controlled this from the first bounce to the last. It was very embarrassing for the Bombers. And I have some names to go over here.
Ooh, some names. He's name dropping.
I am. And we're gonna go through it. You're gonna sense a thematic here.
Okay.
Liam.
Okay.
Nick Cox in 2026. Yes. Saad El Hawley in 2026. Tom Edwards in 2026. Kyle Langford in 2026. Darcy Parish in 2026. Jackson Pryor in 2026. Will Setterfield in 2026. Jade Gresham in 2026.
It's about half
None of these guys would be getting games at other football clubs. Actually, I've got one more. Max Kondiagianis, and I know I pronounced that wrong, in 2026.
Well, some of these kids
no other club would be giving more than half of those guys game time. Nick Cox is a top 10 draft pick. The bloke doesn't do anything. He does nothing. El Howley can't hit a target. Edwards, he runs a lot. He'd have great Strava stats. His Garmin would love it. Doesn't do anything. Langford, please hold a mark, Carl. Your family needs you to hold a mark. Please. Actually, that's not fair. He took 7, but he probably dropped about 45. Parrish, he does know he plays for the team in black and red, right? Someone's told him that.
He's been there for a while, so hopefully.
Is he okay? Jackson Pryor fights everyone, yet absolutely panics the second the ball's in his hand.
I remember a couple of years ago when we were doing like which team should get what. I think it was coming into this year, and I think you had, it couldn't have been the year before, Jesse, at this point, but I think you had Jackson Pryor as a potential Freo.
We did Rob the Nest.
Yeah, that's right. Rob the Nest. That's right. Yeah.
Well, that was before Chapman and Warner solidified their spot, and I actually had a chance to watch Pryor for more than half a season.
Yeah, true.
Look, it is alarming that their best player is Sullivan Roby, and he is. Let's make one thing very clear. He was awesome last night. He was clearly their best on ground by a country mile. It is a massive concern that a draft bolter has to come in and show physicality that senior players don't. You've got Merritt in your best. Fair enough, he's got touches. But he was towed up by Dersma. Dersma was leading him around Optus for 3 hours. The reason Merritt touched the ball, 27 times, 28 times, is because he was following Dersma around half the time. He just happened to be near the area. Like, Dersma gave him an absolute bite. That's an 11-gamer? Absolutely toweling up your superstar, who, by the way, I don't know if you know this, Liam, they put their foot down in the schoolyard and said, no, we're not trading you, Zach. You can't tell me an 11-gamer wouldn't have done better against Willem Dersma than what Merritt did. That was horrendous from him. He's a great footballer. That was nowhere near at his best. Parrish, awful. I actually like the game from Archie Perkins. Mm-hmm. They got something there. I know he's been around for a while. Top 10 draft pick. Hasn't worked out to this point. There's something there. I thought Sardis was great. I mean, Sardis is Sardis, right? He still does things a bit iffily. His disposal isn't amazing, but he commits and he fights, and you got to rate it. He got 5 clearances. Roby got 9. Now, when you look at those numbers, I mean, Merritt had 2. So you've got Sardis and Roby flying the flag in the guts. If Dyson Sharp hadn't done his shoulder, you'd probably run with that as your 3. I don't think Sardis has played 50 games. So your 3 on ballers would be under 50 games, and you'd just be looking for crash and bash because no one else is doing anything.
I think Nate Caddy's putting his heart into it up forward. He's doing his best, but Caddy's
got a serious case of Larky syndrome, in that it's so obvious he's the only guy with talent in a forward line. And this is going back a couple of years in Larky's case, but he's so obviously the only guy in the forward line that can kick goals. The A gets the best defender, and B, everyone else is looking to help out. So Jimby gets the job. As soon as that ball hits the deck, you've got a Bazzo there. You've got, when Cole's down back, he's quickly there. Baker, Duggan, Lindsay, the smaller guys getting around to help. So it becomes a real beat-up on Caddy, who is still showing plenty, but he's going to struggle without Peter Wright in this team.
Over the Eagles side, though, Jesse, this Malai Murdoch kid, God, he's good. God, he's fantastic.
Been saying it for years.
Well, no one listened to you, Jesse. Now we are listening to you. Unbelievable. Dersma, like you said before, the aforementioned, fantastic. Waterman led from the front as well. Lots of names probably could have gotten here as well. I like what Bailey Williams is doing.
Young was
as
superb.
well.
After I poo-pooed him the other week, he was superb.
Hey, listen, Jesse, that's what happens. You poo-poo them on this podcast and they're like, I have to prove him wrong.
I'm literally never against admitting when I'm wrong, because that's part of opinions, right? Like, if I come in here and say something, you can go and give me a ha-ha in the comments. I'm sure I'll get one about Roby soon. He's unironically been one of their best players. And I said, risk drafting him. And you know what? I stand by that assessment at the time, but he's been great. And two things can be true.
2 things can be true, Jesse, yes. Now we've got to wrap this bad boy up. Do we want to talk about No, we'll talk about the Bombers coaching situation when it comes to the pass as to who gets that job totally and honestly in the future. Solomon doesn't really look like
we
he
will
gave
quickly
two
say
shits.
it. The interview was great.
The interview?
The interview was amazing.
Oh, Herdies?
Scott did with channels. No, that was amazing for the oh my god reasons. But yeah, Scott airing out his opinions on everything, including that they should have traded Zach Merritt.
Oh yes. No, it was very good. Yes, the Herd interview was very funny as well. And then the Dean Solomon press conference, who looked like he was like, yeah, whatever. I won't be here long. Don't worry about it. I'm just here for my paycheck.
Just a relief teacher.
Just a relief teacher.
They basically did PE for 3 hours. They didn't do football.
That's true. All right, Jesse, that'll do us for the game recap and this episode. Send a lot of people home.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning into the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments your thoughts on the round that was. That's over on YouTube, on Apple, Amazon, or Spotify. A 5-star review goes a long way. But the best type of review you can give us is word of mouth. So tell your friends, tell your family. Next time you go on annual leave, tell the person that's filling in for your job that you listen to the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast, and they shouldn't keep that seat too warm for too long because you're coming back. So will we, with tips and trades over on YouTube as well. Make sure you check out that. Most importantly, enjoy your football week.
Bye, everybody.